He said very specifically, depending on the questions you ask Putin, you could be arrested or not. And I said, listen to what you're saying. You're saying the U.S. government has like control over my questions and they'll arrest me if I ask the wrong question? Like, how are we better than Putin if that's true? Killing Navalny during the Munich Security Conference in the middle of a debate over $60 billion in Ukraine funding? Maybe the Russians are dumb. I didn't get that vibe at all. I don't think we kill people in other countries to affect election outcomes. Oh, wait. No, we do it a lot and have for 80 years.
The following is a conversation with Tucker.
That's crazy. I mean, listen. Yeah. Navalny also famously poisoned by America, it seems. Come on, dog. Yo, how does he hate America so much? How does he get away with hating America so much? His dad literally is the CIA.
Tucker Carlson, a highly
I'm
influential...
kind of jealous that he can still come across as like an infinitely more patriotic figure and is received as such by the American audience. And he's like pushing Z.
An often controversial political commentator. When he was at Fox, Time magazine called him the most powerful conservative in America. After Fox, he has continued to host big, impactful interviews and shows on X, on the Tucker Carlson podcast, and on TuckerCarlson.com. I recommend subscribing, even if you disagree with his views. It is always good to explore a diversity of perspectives. Most recently, he interviewed the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. We discussed this, the topic of Russia, Putin, Navalny, and the war in Ukraine at length in this conversation. Please allow me to say a few words about the very fact that I did this interview. I have received a lot of criticism, publicly and privately, when I announced that I would be talking with Tucker. For people who think I shouldn't do the conversation with Tucker, or generally think that there are certain people I should never talk to, I'm sorry, but I disagree. I will talk to everyone, as long as they're willing to talk genuinely in long form for 2, 3, 4 more hours. I will talk to Putin and to Zelensky, to Trump and to Biden, to Tucker and to Jon Stewart, AOC, Obama, and many more people with very different views on the world. I want to understand people and ideas. That's what long-form conversations are supposed to be all about. Now, for people who criticize me for not asking tough questions, I hear you, but again, I disagree.
To the people in the chat saying, Hasan, Lex Fridman has openly asked for me to go on his show for longer than a year. That's not a joke. We just haven't been able to, like last time I was in Texas, I hit him up. He wasn't in Texas at the time. Maybe next time I'm in Texas, I'll do it.
I do often ask tough questions, but I try to do it in a way that doesn't shut down the other person, putting them into a defensive state where they give only shallow talking points. Instead, I'm looking always for the expression of genuinely held ideas and the deep roots of those ideas. When done well, this gives us a chance to really hear out the guest and to begin to understand what and how they think. And I trust the intelligence of you, the listener, to make up your own mind, to see through the bullshit, to the degree there's bullshit, and to see to the heart of the person. Sometimes I fail at this, but I'll continue working my ass off to improve. All that said, I find that this no tough questions criticism often happens when the guest is a person the listener simply hates and wants to see them grilled into embarrassment, called a liar, a greedy egomaniac, a killer, maybe even an evil human being, and so on. If you are such a listener,
Tucker does kind of fit the bill on that, though.
what you want is drama, not wisdom. In this case, this show is not for you. There are many shows you can go to for that, with hosts that are way more charismatic and entertaining than I'll ever be.
Damn.
If you do stick around, please know I will work hard to do this well and to keep improving. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for your support. I love you all. This is the Lex Fridman podcast. To support it, please check out our sponsors in the description, And now, dear friends, here's Tucker Carlson. What was your first impression when you met Vladimir Putin for the interview?
I thought he seemed nervous. And I was very surprised by that. And I thought he seemed like someone who'd overthought it a little bit, who had a plan.
Damn, bro, this motherfucker's talking shit. Yo, now that he's back in America, he's just talking shit, dog. Yo, get the fuck out of here, dude. You thought he was nervous? Bro, he called you a pussy to your face, big dog. Get the fuck out of here. It's like, yeah, I thought he was seemingly quite nervous, you know? When he called me a pussy, I really didn't want to say anything because I thought to myself, well, you know, he's only saying that because he's nervous, I think. Yeah. Bro went there to eat his dick, only to come back and have all the smoke. Big Dog's got all the smoke now that he's back in the United States of America. That's crazy. He was over there being like, wow, Russian McDonald's is better than American McDonald's. That's crazy.
And I don't think that's the right way to go into any interview. My strong sense, having done a lot of them for a long time, is that it's better to know what you think, to say, you know, as much as you can, honestly, so you don't get confused by your own lies, and just to be yourself. And I thought that he went into it like an overprepared student, and I kept thinking, why is he nervous? But you know, I guess because he thought a lot of people were going to see it.
But he was also...
Bro, he is literally talking shit from outside of the room. Oh my God. This is literally the shower thoughts. Oh my God. This is the shower thoughts, bro. Oh my God. He's doing the... Oh, dude, I would have fucking kicked his ass. And he knew it too. That's why. He's sneak dissing our boy Vladdy Poo. Listen, man. Listen, he got fucking Navalny in Europe. He can get you too, bitch. Why are you hating from outside the club? Look out for open windows, man.
Probably prepared to give you a full lesson in history, as he did.
Well, I was totally shocked by that and very annoyed because I thought he was filibustering. I thought he would. I mean, I asked him, as I usually do, the most obvious, dumbest question ever, which is, you know, why'd you do this? And he had said in a speech that I think is worth reading. I don't speak Russian, so I haven't heard it in the original, but he had said at the moment of the beginning of the war, he had given this address to Russians in which he explained to the fullest extent we have seen so far why he was doing this. And he said in that speech, I fear that NATO, the West, the United States, the Biden administration will preemptively attack us. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I mean, I can't evaluate whether that's a fear rooted in reality or one rooted in paranoia, but I thought, wow,
Bro,
that's an answer right there.
That is such Israel shit, by the way. That's literally what Israel did. God, Putin want to be Israel so bad.
And so I alluded to that in my question, and rather than answering it, he went off on this long, from my perspective, kind of tiresome, sort of greatest hits of Russian history. And the implication, I thought, was, well, Ukraine is ours, or Eastern Ukraine is ours already. And I thought he was doing that to avoid answering the question. So, you know, the last thing you want when you're interviewing someone is to get rolled. And I didn't want to be rolled. So I, a couple of times, interrupted him politely, I thought, but he wasn't having it. And then I thought, you know what? I'm not here to prove that I'm a great interviewer. It's kind of not about me. I want to know who this guy is. I think a Western audience, a global audience, has a right to know more about the guy. And so just let him talk. you know, because it's not, you know, I don't feel like my reputation's on the line. People have already drawn conclusions about me, I suppose, to the extent they have. I'm not interested really in those conclusions anyway. So just let him talk. And so I calmed down and just let him talk. And in retrospect, I thought that was really, really interesting. You know, whether you agree with it or not, or whether you think it's relevant to the war in Ukraine or not, that was his answer. And so it's inherently significant.
Bro really said he was too shitty to join the CIA. Okay? To your face. He rolled you.
Ken.
Well, you said he was nervous. Were you nervous? Were you afraid? This is Vladimir Putin.
Well, I wasn't afraid at all. And I wasn't nervous at all.
Did you drink tea beforehand?
No, I did my normal regimen of nicotine pouches and coffee. No, I'm not a tea drinker. I tried not to eat, you know, all the sweets they put in front of us, which is that is my weakness, is eating crap. But you eat a lot of sugar before, as you know, before an interview, and it does dull you. So I successfully resisted that. But I wasn't nervous. I wasn't nervous the whole time I was there. Why would I be? You know, I'm 54. My kids are grown. I believe in God. You know, I'm almost never nervous. But no, I wasn't nervous. I was just interested. I mean, I'm interested in Soviet history. I studied it in college. I've read about it my entire life. My dad, you know, worked in the Cold War. It was a constant topic of conversation. And so to be in the Kremlin in a room where Stalin made decisions, either wartime decisions or decisions about murdering his own population, I just couldn't get over it. You know, we were in Molotov's old office. So for me, I was just blown away by that. I thought I knew a lot about Russia. It turns out I knew a lot about the Soviet period, you know, the 1937 purge trials, the famine in Ukraine. Like, I knew a fair amount about that, but I really knew nothing about contemporary Russia, less than I thought I did, it turned out. And, but yeah, I was just blown away by where we were. And that's kind of one of the main drivers at this stage in my life of it, you know, that's why I do what I do, is because I'm interested in stuff and I want to see as much as I can and try and draw conclusions from it to the extent I can. So I was very much caught up in that, but no, I wasn't nervous. I didn't think he's going to like kill me or something. And I'm not particularly afraid of that anyway. So
Not afraid of dying.
not really. No, I mean, again, it's you know, it's an age and stage in life thing. I mean, I've 4 children, so there were times when they were little where I was terrified of dying, because if I died, it would have huge consequences. But no, I mean, at this point, I don't want to die. I'm really enjoying my life, but I've been with the same girl for 40 years, and I have 4 children who I'm extremely close to. Well, now 5, a daughter-in-law, and I love them all. I'm really close to them. I tell them I love them every day. I've had a really interesting life.
What was the goal? Just linger on that. What was the goal for the interview? Like, how were you thinking about it? What would success be like in your head leading into it?
To bring more information
Just information.
to the public.
Wait, what was he? Has he been married since he was 14? He said he's been married for 40 years. And he said he's 54. The fuck? I guess maybe his high school sweetheart?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I have really strong feelings about what's, you know, happening not just in Ukraine or Russia, but around the world. I think the world is resetting to the grave disadvantage of the United States. I don't think most Americans are aware of that at all. And so that's my view, and I've stated it many times because it's sincere. But my goal was to have more information brought to the West so people could make their own decisions about whether this is a good idea. I mean, I guess I reject the whole premise of the war in Ukraine from the American perspective, which is, you know, a tiny group of dumb people in Washington has decided to do this for reasons they won't really explain. And you don't have a role in it at all as an American citizen, as the person who's paying for it, whose children might be drafted to fight it, you know, just shut up and obey. I just reject that completely. You know, I guess I'm a child of a different era. I'm a child of participatory democracy to some extent, where your opinion as a citizen is not irrelevant. And so I'm just, and I guess the level of lying about it was starting to drive me crazy. And I've said, and I will say again, I am not an expert on the region, or really any region other than, say, Western Maine. I just don't, you know, I'm not Russian. And, but it was obvious to me that we were being lied to in ways that were just, it was crazy, the scale of the lies. And I'll give you one.
Dude, he is such a good propagandist. I think one of the greatest things that happened was him losing his Fox News position. He is really fucking good at doing propaganda, no matter what it is. I despise him for that reason, but
one example, the idea that Ukraine would inevitably win this war. Now, victory was never, as it never is, defined precisely. Nothing is ever defined precisely, which is always a tell that there's deception at the heart of the claim. But Ukraine's on the verge of winning. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm hardly a tactician or a military expert. For the fifth time, I'm not an expert on Russia or Ukraine. I just look at
you literally said it was the end of his career when he got off Fox, and I was right. Wait, that was a major W for me, brother. You think Tucker Carlson is popping? He went from fucking bullying Kevin McCarthy to literally talking to the Duluth Dyson, a guy whose claim is that he sucked Obama's cock. What do you mean? Yeah, sure, he fucking interviewed Vladimir Putin with a one-off. But if you think that he has like legitimate pull, if you think he has actual sway beyond like farmed impressions on fucking Twitter and shit, you're delusional. Oh, did you think I meant him leaving Fox was the best? And Chowder thought you meant for Tucker? Oh, no. I was saying like the best for America in general. Like it's good that such a dangerous propagandist does not have as prominent of a platform.
Wikipedia. Russia has 100 million more people than Ukraine. 100 million. It has much deeper industrial capacity, war material capacity than all of NATO combined. For example, Russia is turning out artillery shells, which are significant in a ground war, at a ratio of 7-1 compared to all NATO countries combined. That's all of Europe. Russia is producing 7 times the artillery shells as all of Europe combined? What? That's an amazing fact. And it turns out to be a really significant fact. In fact, the significant fact. But if you ask your average person in this country, even a fairly well-informed person of good faith who's just trying to understand what's going on, who's going to win this war? Well, Ukraine's going to win. They're on the right side. And they think that because our media, who really just do serve the interests of the U.S. government, period, they are state media in that sense, have told them that for over 2 years. And I was in Hungary last summer talking to the prime minister, Viktor Orban, who's whatever you think of him, is a very smart guy, like smart on a scale that we're not used to in our leaders. And I said to him off camera, so is Ukraine going to win? And he looked at me like I was deranged, or I was congenitally, deficient. Are they going to win? No, of course they can't win. It's tiny compared to Russia. Russia has a wartime economy. Ukraine doesn't really have an economy. No, look at the populations. He was like, looked at me like I was stupid. And I said to him, I think most Americans believe that because NBC News and CNN and all the news channels, all of them tell them that because it's framed exclusively in moral terms and it's Churchill versus Hitler. And of course, Churchill's going to prevail in the end. And it's just so dishonest that it doesn't even matter what I want to happen or what I think ought to happen. That's a distortion of what is happening.
Wait, what do you want to happen? I want to know. Please, Lex, ask him a question, dog. What the fuck?
And if I have any job at all, which I sort of don't actually at this point, but if I do have a job, it's to just try to be honest. And that's a lie.
There is a more nuanced discussion about what winning.
Like, listen, Lick. Let me tell you something, all right? There is perhaps no better testament to the fact that Vladimir Putin is not interested in denazification than having literally a fucking American Nazi in his goddamn house and not denazifying, okay? Obviously, it was not real. Obviously, the denazification argument was always bullshit, right? But this should probably end that conversation entirely. The denazification conversation.
Might look like. You're
For
right.
sure.
A nuanced discussion is not being had, but it is possible for Ukraine to quote unquote win with the help of the United States.
I guess that conversation needs.
If he fucking denazified Tucker, I'd reconsider my stance. I'd be like, maybe he's honest about this denazification shit, bro. Maybe I'm pushing Z. Who knows? Putin crushed the Nazi movement in Russia in his first 10 years in office. Yeah, dude, thank God there's no Nazis in Russia anymore.
Needs to begin by defining terms. And the key term is win. What does that mean?
Peace, a ceasefire, who owns which land,
Yes.
coming to the table with, as you call the parent, the United States,
Yes.
putting leverage on the negotiation to make sure there's a fairness.
Amen. Well, of course, and I should just restate this. I am not emotionally involved in this. I'm American in every sense, and my only interest is in America. I'm not leaving ever. And so I'm looking at this purely from our perspective, what's good for us. But also as a human being, as a Christian, I mean, I hate war, and anybody who doesn't hate war shouldn't have power, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Putin certainly hates war. Here's a guy who hates war. The guy I interviewed that's doing war. You might not know that he was doing war because I didn't ask him about it, really.
So I agree with that definition vehemently. A victory is like not killing.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson hates war. That's why he said Iraq is a nation of primitive apes that deserve to be bombed into oblivion. Now he's running the anti-Iraq war narrative now. But that's because he's literally fucking a propagandist.
Killing an entire generation of your population. It's not being completely destroyed to be eaten up by BlackRock or whatever comes next for them. So yeah, we were close to that a year and a half ago. And the Biden administration dispatched Boris Johnson, the briefly prime minister of the UK, to stop it and to say to Zelensky, who I feel sorry for, by the way, because he's caught between these forces that are bigger than he is, to say, no, you cannot come to any terms with Russia. And the result of that has not been a Ukrainian victory. It's just been more dead Ukrainians and a lot of profit for the West. It's a moral crime, in my opinion. And I tried to ask Boris Johnson about it because why wouldn't I? After he...
It's pretty funny that you want to ask Boris Johnson that, which, you know, it's worthy for sure. But like, why didn't you ask Vladimir Putin that? Another question that Lex could be asking here, I think. Like, listen, this is how propaganda, this is the reason why Tucker is a dangerous propagandist, unlike anyone else. Because he's smart enough to fucking put in little kernels of truth. That's what a good propagandist does. Like, he's adding in the whole Boris Johnson part of the conversation, but then simultaneously, like through lies by omission or through not really interrogating Putin on this issue, making it seem as though this is like a purely one-sided affair. It's not. That's why you'll hear a lot of the stuff that he says almost resemble what I have said. But the fundamentals are definitely different.
He denounced me as a tool of the Kremlin or something. And he demanded $1 million to talk to me.
Wow.
And this just happened last week. And by the way, in writing too, I'm not making this. I'm not
Just
making
for
this
the
up.
record, you demanded $1 million from me to talk to me today.
I did, and you paid. No, I'm of course kidding. But and I said to,
Dude, he's so weird when he like emotes. He's so fucking gross when he emotes, dude. I don't know. Terrifying.
his guy, I said, I just interviewed Putin, who was widely recognized as a bad guy. And he did it for free. He didn't demand $1 million. He wasn't in this for profit. Like, are you telling me that Boris Johnson is sleazier than Vladimir Putin? And of course, that is the message.
Yeah, dude, Vladimir Putin was going to fucking demand money for an interview and not like phenomenal access to the dumbest Americans that you have cultivated in your fan base. Like, that's the greatest fucking ad, dude. What do you mean? It's like basically so much easier than Telegram channels. Operating fucking Telegram channels with the right-wing shitheads who are now like pro-Russia because they think Russia is like gonna kill all the Ukrainians who are trans or some shit.
And so I guess these are really, it's not just about Boris Johnson being a sad, rapacious fraud, which he is obviously, but it's about like the future of the West and the future of Ukraine, this country that purportedly we care so much about. All these people are dying, and like, what is the end game? It's also deranged that I didn't imagine and don't imagine that I could like add anything very meaningful to the conversation because I'm not a genius, okay? But I felt like I could, at the very least, puncture some of the lies, and that's an inherent good.
Vladimir Putin, after the interview, said that he wasn't fully satisfied because you weren't aggressive enough. You didn't ask sharp enough questions. First of all, what do you think about him saying that?
I don't even understand it. I guess it does seem like the one Putin statement that Western media take at face value. Everything else Putin says is a lie, except his criticism of me, which is true. But I mean, I have no idea what he meant by that. I can only tell you what my goal was, as I've suggested, was not to make it about me. I watched, he hasn't done any interviews of any kind for years. But the last interview he did with an English-speaking reporter, Western media reporter, was like many of the other interviews he'd done with Western media reporters. Mike Wallace's son did an interview with him that was of the same variety, and it was all about him. I'm a good person, you're a bad person. And I just feel like that's the most tiresome, fruitless kind of interview. It's not about me. I don't think I'm an especially good person. I've definitely never claimed to be. But people can make their own judgments. And again, the only judgments that I care about are my wife and children and God. So I'm just not interested in proving I'm a good person. And I just want to hear from him. And I had a lot of, you should see, I almost never write questions down, but I did in this case because I had I had 3 years to think about it as I was trying to book the interview, which I did myself. But it was all about internal Russian politics and Navalny. And I had a lot of, I thought, really good questions. And then at the last second, and you make these decisions, as you know, since you interview people a lot, often you make them on the fly. And I thought, no, I want to talk about the things that haven't been talked about and that I think matter in a world historic sense. And the number one among those, of course, is the war and what it means for the world. And so I stuck to that. I did ask about Gershkovich, who I felt sorry for, and I wanted Putin to release him to me, and I was offended that he didn't. I thought his rationale was absurd. Well, we want to trade him for someone. I said, well, doesn't that make him a hostage? Which of course it does. But other than that, I really wanted to keep it to the things that I think matter most. People can judge whether I did a good job or not, but that was my decision.
In the moment, what was your gut? Did you want to ask some tough questions as follow-ups on certain topics?
I don't know what it would mean to ask a tough question.
Clarifying questions, I suppose they would.
I guess. I just wanted him to talk. I just wanted to hear his perspective. Again, I've probably asked more asshole questions than like any living American. Sure. I'm, as has been noted correctly, I'm a dick by my nature. And so I just feel at this stage of my life, I didn't need to prove that I could, like, Vladimir Putin, answer the question.
Sure, for sure.
I think if I had been, 34 instead of 54, I definitely would have done that because I would have thought this is really about me and I need to prove myself. And also, no, there's a war going on that is wrecking the U.S. economy in a way and at a scale people do not understand. The U.S. dollar is going away. That was, of course, inevitable ultimately because everything dies, including currencies. But that process of death has been accelerated exponentially by the behavior of the Biden administration and the U.S. Congress, particularly the sanctions.
I'm not going to go back to see another fucking insane Tucker laughter moment. It already lives in my nightmares, okay?
And people don't understand what the ramifications of that are. The ramifications are poverty in the United States, okay? So I just wanted to get to that because I'm coming at this from not a global perspective. I'm coming at it from an American perspective.
So you mentioned Navalny.
Mm-hmm.
After you left, Navalny died in prison.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on, just at a high level first, about his death?
Well, it's awful. I mean, imagine dying in prison. You know, I've thought about it a lot. I've known a lot of people in prison, a lot, including some very good friends of mine. So I felt instantly.
Who the fuck's he talking about that he knows in prison, bro? Dinesh D'Souza? Like, what the fuck?
Sad about it. From a
Epstein?
geopolitical perspective, I don't know any more than that. And I laugh at and sort of resent, but mostly find amusing, the claims by American politicians who really are the dumbest politicians in the world, actually. You know, this happened and here's what it means. And it's like, actually, as a factual matter, we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened. We have no freaking idea what happened. We can say, and I did say, and I will say again, I don't think you should put opposition figures in prison. I really don't. I don't. Period. It happens a lot around the world. It happens in this country, as you know, and I'm against all of it. But do we know how he died? The short answer, no, we don't. Now, if I had to guess, I would say killing Navalny during the Munich Security Conference in the middle of a debate over $60 billion in Ukraine funding, maybe the Russians are dumb.
Bro, I'm sorry. But in the realm of possibilities, and as you guys know, I'm not exactly a State Department mouthpiece. Tucker, as a matter of fact, is much closer to the State Department. His father was directly in the State Department. And his foreign policy, with the exception of Russia, especially in his professional media career, has almost always aligned with American State Department interests. However, in the scenario, in the Navalny death, the responsible parties, by likelihood, if we are to look at it as honestly as possible, if I'm going to make an assessment as honestly as possible, America killing him is lower than him dying of natural causes, which is lower than Vladimir Putin killing him. So it's one, most likely Putin killing him. Second, most likely him dying of natural causes. And then last one being that the United States killed him or the CIA killed him. Because, and this is my almost exact opposite position, if you guys recall, on the Nord Stream pipeline. Because on the Nord Stream pipeline, that made no fucking sense that Russia would blow up their own pipeline. But it makes a whole lot of sense for Russia to kill, Vladimir Putin to literally kill the opposition leader. If it was natural, they would have released the body. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
I didn't get that vibe at all. You know, I don't see it, but maybe they killed him. I mean, they certainly put him in prison.
They now release the body to the family. They didn't originally release it.
Which I'm against. But here's what I do know is that we don't know. And so when Chuck Schumer stands up and Joe Biden reads some card in front of him with lines about Navalny, it's like, I'm allowed to laugh at that because it's absurd. You don't know.
There's a lot of interesting ideas about if he was killed, who killed him.
Yeah.
Because it could be Putin. It could be somebody in Russia who's not Putin.
Yeah.
It could be Ukrainians because it would benefit.
Bro, come on. That's even, okay, never mind. I thought my 3 arguments that I gave were pretty honest. Okay? Especially when you factor in the likelihood, the likelihood of the responsible party. I feel like Lex is just going nutty here by adding like additional stuff, like Ukrainians killed him. It's like, yeah, it could have been Hamas that killed him.
Fit the war.
They killed Dugin's daughter in Moscow. So yeah, it's possible.
And it could be, I mean, the United States could also be involved.
I don't think we kill people in other countries to affect election outcomes. Oh, wait. No, we do it a lot and have for 80 years, and it's shameful. I can say that as an American because it's my money in my name.
It was Hunter Biden. It was Hunter Biden. Wait, how are you going to fucking sit across from the guy who was literally there at the moment of his death? What if it was Tucker who killed him? Bro, you said Ukraine might have killed him. Why would Ukraine kill the major opposition? Like when the guy invading their country, sure, Navalny himself is also not exactly too fond of Ukraine as far as I understand. And his opposition to the Ukrainian war is just like as much as he can get like garner Western support or whatever. But still, I feel like the people that are more interested in killing him, if we're looking at people who suspiciously were in Russia at the time, why not Tucker?
Yeah, I'm really offended by that. And I never thought that was true. And I spent, again, I'm much older than you. And so I spent my worldview was defined by the Cold War. And very much in the house I lived in Georgetown, in Washington, D.C., you know, that's what we talked about. And yeah, and the left at the time.
Yeah, I wonder why. Because your dad was a fucking CIA agent, bro.
I'm, you know, I don't know, the wacko MIT professor who I never had any respect for, who I know you've interviewed, etc. Like the hard left was always saying, well, the United States government is interfering in other elections. And I just dismissed that completely out of hand as stupid and actually a slander against my country. But it turned out to all be true or substantially true anyway. And that's been a real shock for me in middle age to understand that. But anyway, as to Navalny, look, I don't know. But we should always proceed on the basis of what we do know, which is to say on the basis of truth, knowable truth. And if you have an entire policymaking apparatus that is making the biggest decisions on the face of the planet on the basis of things that are bullshit or lies.
I'll admit, I do have so much envy for two reasons. One, there are definitely more, in totality, more Americans who think Tucker is a truthful journalist, honest to God, seeking the truth at all times, than there are of people who think that of me. That's number one. And the second reason why I'm fucking envious is that he gets to fucking be America bad. And no matter how far he goes, where he literally is like, Russia is better than America. I love Russia. Russia is the best country. Literally better than the United States of America. Even the McDonald's hamburgers are better in Russia. And they still think he's a fucking patriot. Meanwhile, I'm over here like, bro, America should get healthcare. It would be nice to spend money on healthcare instead of fucking, you know, murdering brown children. And everyone's like, you hate America. Why don't you go fucking join Hamas? Your name sounds like Hamas anyway, HasanAbi. I hate that. I fucking hate that. Why? Because I hate it not because of the immediate personal reasons, but I hate it because it spells, like, it shows me how Americans view patriotism and like honor and caring for their fellow citizens. They only see it from the framework of like death dealing overseas and white supremacy. Like the more white supremacist you are, the more patriotic you are, brother. It's like if you are anti-white supremacy, you're anti-America.
You're going to get bad outcomes every time, and that's why we are where we are.
Does it bother you that basically the most famous opposition figure in Russia is sitting in prison?
Well, of course it does. Of course it bothers me. I mean, it bothered me when I got there. It bothers me now. I was sad when he died. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the measures of, it's one of the basic measures of political freedom. Are you imprisoning people who oppose you? You know, are you imprisoning people who pose a physical risk to you? I mean, there's some subjective decision making involved in these things. However, big picture, yeah. Do you have opposition leaders in jail? It's not a politically free society, and Russia isn't, obviously. And as I said, a friend of mine from childhood, an American, actually, who's a wonderful person, lives in Russia Moscow with his Russian wife. And I had dinner with him. He's a very balanced guy, totally non-political person. And speaks Russian and loves his many Russian children.
One hundo P oligarch. Okay. Or wait, was he American and married into Russia?
And loves the culture. And there's a lot to love. The culture that produced Tolstoy. You know, it's not a gas station with nuclear weapons. Sorry. Only a moron would say that. It's a very deep culture. I don't fully understand it, of course, but I admire it. Who wouldn't? But I asked him, like, what's it like living here? And he goes, it's great. Moscow is a great city, indisputably. He said, you don't want to get involved in Russian politics. And I said, what? He said, well, you could get hurt. You could wind up like Navalny if you did. But also it's just too complicated. You know.
Oh my God, dude, the standards are fucking insane. Like, Russia is up to snuff, is up to, now at least, the standards of like a Western nation. Okay? If you're a firm, committed believer of like liberal capitalist democracy, hand waving away things like murdering political opposition leaders is a little bit wild, especially when you only talk about it when you're comparing it to Donald Trump and how Donald Trump himself is being politically persecuted in a similar vein to Navalny by Joe Brandon. It's like, where is the standard? Like, when I talk about one-party governance in China and compare it to the duopoly, the false, the fallacy of choice that we give in the United States of America, there's at least a consistent thorough line there. Like, it's consistent. Both of these countries are operating as a uniparty with very little care or consideration for democratic perspectives or the perspectives of the majority. At least as far as I understand it and as far as I've seen it with respect to China, the Chinese citizens are more favorable of their government as long as they don't get censored or run afoul of government perspectives. Now that in and of itself is still unimaginably cruel. That is absolutely unacceptable. I would not ever believe that to be fair and just in the United States of America, and I don't think it's fair and just in China either. What you're mad about is baseline privilege because his fans are genuinely delusional and will listen and repeat anything. They don't scrutinize him. Would you go on this podcast? Not Tucker's, but I would go on Lex's. Yes.
You know, the Russian mind is not exact.
Hasan, I love censorship if it's in China. No, one of my major criticisms of China has almost always revolved around Chinese censorship. Especially because it's especially important for me because I come from a country with no freedom of speech. So I do see value in that. What do you think his goal is with all this Russia shit? I don't know. Maybe just... I hate to fucking give liberals credit here. But, like, I do feel like maybe he's just a really good entry point into a receptive audience to instill pro-Russia narratives. Like, not to be a Russia-gator, but it does seem a little bit... It does seem a little bit like he wants to do the thing that, what's his face? Squeaks was advocate. Vivek. Oh my God. I can't believe I forgot Vivek Ramaswamy. That's how fucking unbelievably irrelevant he was throughout that entire fucking process. Day one, maybe he's like angling it and like Russia will be our ally in the war against China type shit. Like they're white, we're white, that sort of thing. You got that from the chat? You got that take from the chat? What take? Tucker wants an alliance with Russia to go to war against China. Oh, you're claiming that I got Vivek Ramaswamy's famous campaign contribution that we've covered endlessly from you. You actually made that. D-Man was right about you. The only thing he was right about me is that I serve the top of the hour ad break at the top of every hour, and it's 3 minutes long, and I do it every single time. And if you thought you could fucking say that just so you could bait me into serving the top of the hour ad break, you were fucking wrong, baby. Yep. Here's the 3 minute ad break now. I forgot the last one, but who cares?
Exactly this. It's a European city, but it's not quite European. And the way they think is very, very complex. Very complex. It's too complicated. Just don't get involved. And I would just say two things. One, I'm not sure. I mean, like I don't know. But my strong sense is that Navalny's death, whoever did it, probably didn't have a lot to do with the coming election in Russia. My sense from talking to Putin and the people around him is they're not really focused on that. I mean, in fact, I asked one of his top advisors, when's the election? And she looked at me completely confused. She didn't know the date of the election. Okay. She's like, March? Okay. And I asked a bunch
Yeah, because they don't have any real elections.
of other people just in Moscow, who's Putin running against? Like nobody knew. So it's not a real election, right? In the sense that we would recognize at all. Second, I was really struck by so many things in Moscow and really deeply bothered by a lot of things that I saw there. But one thing I noticed was the total absence of cult of personality propaganda, which I expected to see and have seen around the world. Jordan, for example. I don't know if you've been to Jordan, but go to Jordan. In every building, there are pictures of the king and his extended family. And that's a sign of political insecurity. You know, you don't create a cult of personality unless you're personally insecure and also unless you're worried about losing your grip on power. None of that. It's interesting. And I expected to see a lot of it, you know, like statues of Putin. No, there are no statues of anybody other than like Christian saints. So that was like, I'm not quite sure. I'm just reporting what I saw. So yes, it's not in a political sense, it's not a free country. It's not a democracy in the way that we would understand it or I don't want to live there. Okay. Because I like to say what I think. In fact, I make my living doing.
Why is media focusing on listening to fascists all the time instead of talking and focusing on honest, humanitarian, decent people activists? Brilliant take, my friend. I don't know, maybe because America is fucking full of right-wing, fascist adjacent, and openly fascist shitheads. So propagandists for WASP nationalism get a lot of fucking clout, and we are tuned into people with massive audiences like this because they get to sway public opinion significantly more than some fucking humanitarian, okay? Like,
doing it. But it's not Stalinist in a recognizable way. And anyone who says it is should go there and tell me how.
I mean, this question about the freedom of the press is underlying the very fact of the interview you're having with him.
Right.
So you might not need to ask the Navalny question, but did you feel like, are there things I shouldn't say?
I mean, how honest do you want me to be? I mean it when I say I felt not one twinge of concern for the 8 days that I was there. Maybe I just didn't. And I feel like I've got a pretty
Yeah, bro, of course you didn't feel concerned. What do you mean? You were doing propaganda for him. What the fuck? Like, yeah, he's not going to. I don't think he's going to kill you, dog. He was using you like a cum rag. Why the fuck would you be concerned?
Strong gut sense of things. I rely on it. I make all my decisions based on how I feel, my instincts, and I didn't feel it at all. My lawyers before I left, and these are people who work for a big law firm. This is not Bob's law firm. This is one of the biggest law firms in the world. Said, you're going to get arrested if you do this by the U.S. government on sanctions violations. And I said, well, I don't recognize the legitimacy of that actually, because I'm American and I've lived here my whole life. And that's so outrageous that I'm happy to face that.
Okay, dude. That was never going. He knows that was not going to happen. And of course it wasn't going to happen. And it didn't happen. Like, that's. The American government only has smoke for actual whistleblowers. That's it. Don't do it, Tucker. America's going to kill you, not Russia. It's like, yeah, of course.
That risk, because I so reject the premise, okay? I'm an American. I should be able to talk to anyone I want to. And I plan to exercise that freedom, which I think I was born with. And I gave them this long lecture. They were like, we're just lawyers. But that was, let me put it this way. I don't know how much you dealt with lawyers, but it costs many thousands of dollars to get a conclusion like that. Like, they sent a whole bunch of their summer associates or whatever. They put a lot of people on this question, checked a lot of precedent, and they sent me a 10-page memo on it. And their sincere conclusion was, do not do this. And of course, it made me mad. So I was lecturing on the phone, and I had another call with the head lawyer, and he said, well, look, a lot will depend on the questions that you ask Putin. Mm-hmm. If you're seen as too nice to him,
thank you for the 10
you could get
gifted,
arrested
Anonymous.
when you come back. And I was like, you're describing a fascist country, okay? You're saying that the U.S. government will arrest me if I don't ask the questions they want asked? That's what you're saying? Well, we just think based on what's happened that's possible.
Look, notice how he's like, I wasn't afraid for my safety in Russia, but I was afraid for my safety in America. Listen, I am the most anti-America guy you're going to see in the United States of America for actual shit that America does wrong. Okay? But if we're having a fucking arresting political dissenters competition, like, come on, dog. Russia absolutely has got that shit locked down. It's like one of the few areas, like, America is really fucked up with its criminal justice system. After all, we have a horrifying process, and we have the #1 prisoner per capita. Okay? #1 prisoner per capita population on the planet. Having said that, however, as far as like arresting people or making them disappear for political dissent, it does happen in the United States of America. It has definitely happened as far as like assassinating political leaders that disrupt the delicate hierarchies that we've desperately tried to prop up. MLK, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, many examples. Okay. There's also the suspicious mass suicides of other former BLM leaders. But ultimately, and the Black Panthers, I mean, there's many such examples. Notice how a lot of them are black. Very suspicious. I wonder why. The point is, as far as arresting political dissenters, like, I should be in fucking jail if that was happening. I would be in jail for my commentary in Turkey. I would be in jail for my commentary in a place like Russia and even China, I would say. I'd be in jail in many other countries. I am not in jail in the United States of America. Now, why am I not in jail in the United States of America? Because what I say is nowhere near as disruptive in the United States of America. Lol, you're an asset to the current establishment. Yes, that's what I meant. It's because I'm a fucking CIA agent, dude. That's why. Me and every one of your favorite podcasters from TrueAnon to Chapo, we're all CIA assets. You are certainly not due for your lithium prescription. Yeah, famously. Or the much more likely reason is that I am not disruptive to the powers that be. I'm not disruptive enough because America is the hegemonic superpower. So it has the comfort. It has the comfort of not caring about political dissent internally. It's not because like they cherish liberalism of that sort. It is because this does not actually, like, it's impossible for me to actually disrupt American politics in the way that things currently, stand. Aren't you at least somewhat scared that they might come after you and mess with you? No. I'm not. I'm more afraid of Amazon than I am of the United States government. They did it to JT, but guess what? He still does the same exact fucking commentary. He didn't go to jail because no matter what we say and do, the way that the structure works is so fucking powerful, so overwhelmingly powerful that we're not even a blip on their radar. JT is second thought. At most, I can't get fucking TSA pre-check or global entry.
Possible. And so I'm just telling you what happened.
So you were okay being arrested in Moscow?
I didn't think I was
arrested in.
I didn't think for a second. I mean, maybe, look, I don't speak Russian. I'd never been there before. Mm-hmm. Everything about the culture was brand new to me. You know, ignorance does protect you, sort of, when you have no freaking idea what's going on. You're not worried about it. Like, this has happened to me many times. There's a principle there that extends throughout life.
Do you not attribute the stochastic harassment you endure to the U.S. government, dog? I'm not sure I agree with you here. No, dude. I attribute that to Americans being dumb as fuck and doing what, like, COINTELPRO would have done many, many years ago voluntarily. It is a testament to how powerful the liberal capitalist hegemonic thinking is, that, like, we have adopted that position ourselves and do it for fucking free. No agency has to step in and do that when there is, like, entire communities online that will do it for them. I don't think there are, like, actual CIA operatives that are coming in here to be like, wow, imagine, I hope your social battery is not running out. No, I think those are, like, voluntary dipshits that get egged on by the likes of Keemstar or Destiny. Not the fucking American government doing that.
So it's completely possible that I was in grave peril and didn't know it. Because, like, how would I know it? You know, I'm like a bumbling English speaker from California. But I didn't feel it at all.
But the lawyers did.
Yeah, I mean, it scared the crap out of people. You're going to... And look, you have to pay in cash. They don't take credit cards because of sanctions. And you have to go through all these hoops, just procedural hoops, to go to Russia, which I was willing to do because I wanted to interview Putin, because they told me I couldn't. But then there's another fact, which is that I was being surveilled by the U.S. government, intensely surveilled by the U.S. government. And this came out. They admitted it. The NSA admitted it a couple of years ago, that they were up in my Signal account. And then they leaked it to the New York Times. They did that again before I left. And I know that because two New York Times reporters, one of whom I actually like a lot, said, oh, you're going, and called other people. Oh, he's going to interview Putin. I hadn't told anybody that, like anybody, like my wife, 2 producers, that's it. So they got that from the government. Then I'm over there. And of course I want to see Snowden, who I admire. And so we have a mutual friend. So I got his text and come on over, and Snowden does not want publicity at all.
Joe Rogan.
And so, but I really wanted to have dinner with him. So we had dinner in my hotel room at the Four Seasons in Moscow. And I tried to convince him, I'd love to do an interview, shoot it on my iPhone. I'd love to take a picture together and put it on the internet.
Glenn Greenwald, do you think? Probably.
Because I just want to show support, because I think he's been railroaded. He had no interest in living in Russia, no intention of being in Russia. The whole thing is a lie. But anyway, whatever. All this stuff. And he just said, respectfully, I'd rather not anyone know that we met. Great. The only reason I'm telling you this is because, and I didn't tell anybody, and I didn't text it to anybody, okay, except him. Semaphore.
Why is he
runs this piece saying, reporting information they got from the U.S. intel agencies, leaking against me using my money in my name in a supposedly free country. They run this piece saying I'd met with Snowden, like it was a crime or something. So again, my interest is in the United States and preserving freedoms here, the ones that I grew up with. And if you have a media establishment that acts as an auxiliary of, or acts as employees of the national security state, you don't have a free country. And that's where we are. And
like, again, he's talking about something that is objectively true. And you want to know why he knows it's objectively true? Because his dad literally fucking did that. Okay? That was his dad's job. It's so crazy that he's like talking about this shit, but it's for like nonsensical stuff. Like, yeah, it's clear that the media is working as a part of the state apparatus. Why? To make your kid gay. It's like, no, man, that's not what they're fucking doing, dumbass. If anything, that's the one aspect of it that is to make liberals fucking feel like they actually do have the best interest or progressive interests in mind. It's the World Economic Forum shit all over again. This is what is very frustrating about conservatives being the only group of individuals that actually adopt leftist economic populism simply for propaganda purposes. And the guy who did it before Tucker was Adolf fucking Hitler. They're doing it again. I'm losing my fucking mind. It's literally, it's so cynical. It drives me fucking insane. That's why they're called National Socialists. Wait, who is that guy? Adolf Hitler? He's a guy. Just some dude. Do you not believe that the WEF is trying to exude influence? They have board members in high-ranking positions in multiple governments. No, dummy. I'm saying that the World Economic Forum is a liberal institution. So when they talk about like, oh, we got to do more social safety nets, or we got to make sure everyone's gay or whatever the fuck, that's just seasoning for liberals. But it's just a reinforcement of capitalist hegemony. It's not a socialist institution. It's bad, but for the same reasons that like Davos is bad, for the same reasons that BlackRock is bad, but it's not just BlackRock. It's all the fucking Republican politicians that are also holding up that same exact order. Tucker Carlson being yet another person who does that. That's what's frustrating, that like right-wingers would be like, yeah, I hate Big Pharma, which is why I'm voting for the Republican Party. The fuck? Bro, the reason why you hate Big Pharma is because of the Republican Party and the liberals as well, certainly, but goddamn, dude. That's how powerful liberal hegemony is. That's how important it is. That motherfuckers who even hate the masters are just like using all their time and energy and anger towards like undocumented immigrants at the fucking border, dude. Yeah, those are the guys who made Big Pharma the way it is. Oh. Can you talk about how always looking for bad guys to blame instead of recognizing the logics of systems such as neoliberalism and imperialism is reactionary and leads to diagonalism such as Tucker and Bannon, such as the ones that Tucker and Bannon stoke? I mean, yeah, if you're not looking at the structures and recognizing that this is designed this way. Bro, you yapping so hard. Is there anyone on Twitch with political content that I can go over to? I don't know. I'm sure there are, brother. Maybe you'll find
And I'm not guessing because I spent my entire life in that world. 33 years I worked in big news companies. And so I know how it works. I know the people involved in it. I could name them. Ben Smith of Semaphore, among many others. And I find that really objectionable. Not just on principle either, in effect, in practice. I don't want to live in that kind of country. And people are like, they externalize all of their anxiety about this, I have noticed. So it's like, Russia's not free. Yeah, I know. Neither's, Burkina Faso. Like most countries aren't free, actually, but we are. We're the United States. We're different.
This is why it's like fucking, yeah, okay, dog. Sure. The profit motive is and always will be their God, and they have just figured out that they can sprinkle in these liberal social takes, e.g. pride flag, something every June. Conservatives do the same thing by pretending to care about populist economic issues.
And that's my concern. Preserving that is my concern. And so they get so exercised about what's happening in other parts of the world, places they've never been, know nothing about. It's almost a way of ignoring what's happening in their own country right around them. I find it so strange and sad and weird.
So the NSA was tracked.
You tell people to vote Democrat. How are you any different than the guy voting Republican against Big Pharma? Well, at least the fucking Democratic Party, to a certain degree, lies about being anti-Big Pharma. The Republican Party doesn't even do that. The fuck? And it's not even because I fucking think that the Democratic Party is going to do something about Big Pharma that I say vote Democrat.
Tracking you? Do you think CIA was? Is people still tracking you?
Look, one of the things I did before I went, just because of the business.
Also, I think he wasn't here for the past like 4 hours out of the 6 where I was just like absolutely comstering the Democratic Party.
I'm in, all of us are in, and just because we live here, we all have theories about secure communications channels. Like Signal is secure, Telegraph isn't, or WhatsApp is owned by Mark Zuckerberg. You can't trust it. Okay. So I thought, before I go over here, I was getting all this, we're having all these conversations, my producers and I, about this. And I decided, I'm just gonna actually find out like what's really going on. So I talked to 2 people who would know, trust me. And it's all I can say. And I hate to be like, I talk to people who would know, but I can't do there, but I mean it. Mm-hmm. They would know. And both of them said exactly the same thing, which is, are you joking? Nothing is secure. Mm-hmm. Everything is monitored all the time. If state actors are involved, I mean, you can keep the, the Malaysian mafia from reading your text, probably. You cannot keep the big intel services from reading your text. It's not possible.
Yeah, the guy he was talking to was his dad, which I will keep mentioning, was in the fucking CIA. Was the CIA. Matt Lieb doesn't know it, but he's giving you props here. I don't know who coined the term debate fervors to describe Destiny and his hogs, but you deserve a medal. It is a good take. That's a retweet, baby.
Any of them, or listening to your calls. So, and that was the firm conclusion of people who've been involved in it, for a long time, decades, in both cases. So I just thought, you know what? I don't care. I don't care. I'm not sending a ton of naked pictures of myself to anybody.
Not a ton, just a
little. Not a ton. I'm 54, dude. Probably not too many.
All right.
But so I'm like, I'm just so the guys I travel with, 3 people I work with who I love, who I've been around the world with for many years, and I know them really, really well. And they all got, separate phones, and I'm leaving my other phone back in New York or whatever. And I just decided I don't care.
Bro, he needs Huawei phones, dog. That's what you need. Little does he know.
Actually, and I resent having to no privacy, because privacy is a prerequisite for freedom. But I can't change it, and so I have the same surveilled cell phone. And I do switch them out because there it is. Because if you have too much spyware on your phone, this is true, it wrecks the battery. And no, I'm serious. It does. And it was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, we went to North Korea.
Was right. What is this?
And my phone started acting crazy. And so I talked to someone on the National Security Council who called me about this, somehow knew that your phone is being surveilled by the South Korean government. I was like, I like the South Korean government. Why would they do that? Because they want more information. They thought I was talking to Trump or whatever. So, but I could tell because all of a sudden the thing would just drain in like 45 minutes. So that's a downside.
So you keep switching phones, getting new phones for the battery life. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to do it. I'm kind of flinty Yankee type in some ways, so I don't like to spend $1,000 with a freaking Apple corporation too often. But yeah, I do.
I mean, you say it lightly, but it's really troublesome that you as a journalist would be tracked.
Well, they leaked it to Semaphore, and they leaked it to the New York Times. Look, I would even put up, well, there's nothing I can do, so I have to put up with everything, okay? But I would probably not be actively angry about being surveilled because I'm just so old, and I actually do pay my taxes. I'm not sleeping with the makeup artist or whatever, so I don't care that much. The fact that they are leaking against me, that the intel services in the United States are actively engaged in U.S. politics and media, that's so unacceptable. That makes democracy impossible. There's no defense of that, and yet NBC News, Ken Delanian, and the rest will defend it. And it's like, and not just on NBC News, by the way, on the supposedly conservative channels too, they will defend it. And there's no defending that. You can't have democracy if the intel services are tampering in elections and information, period.
So you had no fear. Your lawyer said, be careful which questions you asked. You said, I don't have.
Well, the lawyer said, no, he said very specifically, if, depending on the questions you ask Putin, you could be arrested or not. And I said, listen to what you're saying. You're saying the U.S. government has like control over my questions and they'll arrest me if I ask the wrong question? Like, how are we better than Putin if that's true? And by the way, that's just what the lawyer said. But I can't overstate, one of the biggest law firms in the United States, smart lawyers we've used for years. So I was really shocked by it.
You said leaders kill, leaders lie.
Yeah. I don't believe in leaders very much. Like this whole Zelensky's Jesus and Putin's Satan. It's like, no, they're all leaders of countries, okay? Like, grow up a little bit, you child. Have you ever met a leader? Like first of all, anyone who seeks power.
Have you ever met a leader? Yeah, no, dude. I have not. What the fuck? No, I have not met a leader. What the fuck? He just said that so casually. Like, does bro think we're meeting global leaders like on a regular basis? What the fuck? Grow up, you child. Have you not met a global leader?
Power is damaged morally, in my opinion. You shouldn't be seeking power. You can't seek power or wealth for its own sake and remain a decent person. That's just true. So there aren't any like really virtuous billionaires and there aren't any really virtuous world leaders. You have grades of virtue. Some are better than others for sure. But I mean, in other words, Zelensky may be better than Putin. I'm open to that possibility. But to claim that one is evil and the other is virtuous, it's like, you're revealing that you're a child. You don't know anything about how.
I hate that he's not wrong. I just fucking, like I said, I think I despise Tucker Carlson more when I agree with him. That's what really is annoying about it.
The world actually is, or what reality is. Like
That's quite a realist perspective, but there is a spectrum.
There's a spectrum. Absolutely. I'm not saying they're all the same. They're not.
And our task is to figure out where on the spectrum they lie. And the leader's task is to confuse us and convince us they're one of the good guys.
Of course. But I actually reject even that formulation. I don't think it's always about the leaders. I mean, of course, the leaders make the difference. A good leader has a healthy country and a bad leader has a decaying country, which is something to think about.
Do I think he's disingenuous? Yes. I don't believe that there's an honest bone in this man's body. Yes. I think he is a profoundly cynical American, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant nationalist, a WASP nationalist through and through. And I do think that he says everything for a purpose. He's a master manipulator. And I do think that he has he's dangerous because I do think that he is less of a mercenary and more of a ideologically minded person, in the sense that I think he's doing, or maybe he is still a mercenary. I don't know. I used to think his economic populism was an act specifically to launder, because he knows that act, especially when coming from the right, will read very well to an infinitely more receptive audience, because they've already welcomed him in. They're always going to be charitable to him. So when you have that level of charitability in the Republican right, you can get away with saying truthful things and people will be like, oh yeah, he is right, actually. And he's right about this, so he's definitely right about the immigrants are coming in to rape our daughters take. As a matter of fact, I think the immigrants are coming in to rape our daughters take is the reason why they are more charitable to him. But ultimately, I think he cares more about the nationalism aspect significantly more than he cares about the economic left-wing populist aspect. He doesn't care about that at all, as a matter of fact. I think he's just a talking point. Yeah, he's a very savvy racist.
But it's about the ideas and the policies and the practical effect of things. So we're very much caught up in the personalities of various leaders, not just our political leaders, but our business leaders, our cultural leaders. Are they good people? Do they have the right thoughts? It's like, no, I ask a much more basic question. What are the fruits of their behavior? And I always make it personal because I think everything is personal. Does his wife respect him? Do his children respect him? How are they doing? Is the country he runs thriving, or is it falling apart? If your life...
Okay, see, this is why it's not grounded in dialectics at all. He's like, yeah, I care more about whether a leader's wife respects them or their children respect them, or if their country is thriving. First of all, I wouldn't say either of these countries are thriving, neither Russia nor Ukraine. So on that front, it's I don't know. And secondly, I don't, who gives a fuck if your wife respects you, dude? What are you saying? That's why everything falls apart.
Life expectancy is going
So he likes Xi by that logic? Yeah, he hates Xi.
down. If your suicide rate is going up,
That was my unironic favorite part of that interview, where he was he had to sit there and talk about how sick China is. That, and also the part where Putin straight up to his face was said that he was too stupid to join the CIA, that the CIA rejected him.
your standard of living is tanking, you're not a good leader. I don't care what you tell me. I don't care what you claim you represent.
Tucker Carlson talking about Hitler's war economy pre D-Day. Not even pre D-Day, but man, his wife seemingly respects him. His dog respects him. Seems like he's won the admiration of the German folk. Seems like the German economy is doing well in a brief period. Many are saying it's just for a brief period, but perhaps Hitler was a respected individual by Tucker Carlson's standards. 1932 to 1938.
Then I don't
What's going
care
on?
about the ideas or the systems that you say you embody. It's dogs barking to me. How's your life expectancy? How's your suicide rate? What's drug use like? Are people having children? Are people's children more likely to live in a freer, more prosperous society than you did and their grandparents?
You're just straight up fascist, bro. I swear to
Like,
God.
those are the only measures that matter to me. The rest is a lie. But anyway, the point is, we just get so obsessed with like the theater around people or people, and we miss the bigger things that are happening, and we allow ourselves to be deceived into thinking that what doesn't matter at all matters, that moral victories are all that matters. No, actually, facts on the ground victories matter more than anything. I mean, you certainly see it in this country. Black Lives Matter, for example. How many black people did that help? It hurt a lot of black people, but in the end, we should be able to measure it. You know, like how many black people have died by gunfire in the 4 years since George Floyd died? Well, the number's gone way, way up. And that was a Black Lives Matter operation, defund the police. So I think we can
See? Told you. He brings you in with all this other shit, and then he hits the notes that he actually cares about. Pure fascist demagogue right there. That's what he actually gives a shit about. Okay?
say, as a factual matter, a data-based matter, Black Lives Matter didn't help black people. And if it did, tell me how. Well, these are important moral victories. I'm over that.
It's like Black Lives Matter was instantly robbed of any kind of radical revolutionary politics it might have had by first the Democratic Party. It was neutered by the Democratic Party, and it was still destroyed by the Republicans regardless. The entire goal overall was to greatly offer police accountability against all people, by the way, not just black people, regardless of what the dumbass white supremacist grifters say. And he's like, yeah, it didn't happen. It went nowhere. It's like, yeah, you're right. That's their fault. I guess him and Barack Obama are on board on that line of not liking BLM.
That's just another lie, a long litany of lies. So I try to see the rest of the world that way. But more than anything, I try to see world events through the lens of an American, because I am one. And what does this mean for us? And it's not even the war, it's the sanctions that will forever change the United
Like, it'd be nice if Lex here would cut in and be like, well, regardless of the actual, like, Tucker, I want to know what your position is. Do you think that their goals ultimately, because you're saying, like, regardless of the moral victory or whatever, do you think that those goals were justifiable? What do you think BLM's goals were? Because its failure is apparent, but its failure is caused by the fact that it was against the dominant white supremacist hierarchy. Anyway.
United States, our standard of living, the way our government operates, that more than any single thing in my lifetime screwed the United States.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing a great job of showing all of the failures of capitalism and then arriving so close to the answer only to turn around and be like, it's actually BLM and immigrants that are causing this collapse. That's it. That's the point. Because I'm a firm believer that every single American has like some level of understanding and some level of anger towards like corporations and whatnot, right? That's why you hear these like right wingers who fucking talk about, how they hate big pharma. But instead of getting mad at big pharma, what do? They're like, oh, I'm an anti-vaxxer. Why am I an anti-vaxxer? Because corporations want me to get vaccinated. That must mean it's wrong to get vaccinated. Not realizing that, like, no, you must get vaccinated because cattle get vaccinated in the same way. Technically, it's good for you, even if it aligns with the interests of corporations. They just don't want you to fucking die on the job, or they want you to be able to recover way faster so you can get back to the fucking field of work. They're too stupid to understand that, though, that the interests converge in that front. But that resentment ultimately still exists. What they fail to recognize, though, is that, wow, way off take? What do you mean? What was off about that? I think ultimately, that resentment still exists. It's very impossible. It's impossible not to be resentful. Just like it's impossible not to be resentful of the rich, especially when you're suffering. You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't you be resentful of the wealthy when you're fucking suffering and like some random dickhead Twitch streamer is you know, living the life of luxury that you will most likely never be able to achieve? Doors open. What the fuck? Oh, it's not. Hold on. Aren't you a multimillionaire? Yes, dumbass. I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about someone, multimillionaire. I'm talking about someone who is well off in comparison to the average person. Doors open now. Oh, sorry. Talking about why people have resentment towards people who are affluent, people who are wealthy. I understand that resentment. My point is, you're getting upset at the wrong person. You're getting upset at someone who, despite his successes, is still telling you how the structures are and why you're in the particular conditions that you're in and how you can at least make material changes in your life that'll be a little bit better for you. Okay? Why are you doing that? Because I'm accessible. Much easier to fucking come in here and yell at me than it is to, like, you know, I guess dismantle capitalist structures.
Levying those sanctions in the way that we did was crazy. And that for me, the main takeaway from my 8 days in Moscow was not Putin. He's a leader, whatever. None of them are that different, actually, in my pretty extensive experience. No, it was Moscow. That blew my mind. I was not prepared for that at all. And I thought I knew a lot about Moscow. My dad worked there on and off in the 80s and 90s because he's a U.S. government employee, and he was always coming back.
Why won't he say CIA, man? Your dad was CIA.
Moscow, it's a nightmare and all this stuff, no electricity. I got there almost exactly 2 years after sanctions, totally cut off from Western financial systems, kicked out of SWIFT, can't use U.S. dollars, no banking, no credit cards. And that city, just factually, I'm not endorsing the system, I'm not endorsing the whole country. I didn't go to Lake Baikal. You know, I didn't go to Turkmenistan. I just went to Moscow, largest city in Europe, 13 million people. I drove all around it. And that city is way nicer, outwardly anyway, I don't live there, than any city we have by a lot. And by nicer, let me be specific. No graffiti, no homeless, no people using drugs in the street, totally tidy, no garbage on the ground. And
I do think it's kind of wild where he talks about Russia and he talks about how there's like no drugs and no poverty. I didn't see it. It's like fucking going unironically. I know that this is a Daily Show joke, but it is like going to fucking DPRK and being like, dude, no, like people are eating fucking hamburgers every day. Like the DPRK is doing significantly better, all things considered, in comparison to where it was during periods of mass famine, and their conditions are the way they are as a consequence of global sanctions and American imperialism. Having said that, however, you're only doing propaganda if you fucking you're doing left book style propaganda for DPRK. Anyway.
No forest of steel and concrete soul destroying buildings. None of the postmodern architecture that oppresses us without even our knowledge.
Like, I went to Beverly Hills. I didn't see a single homeless person. What's going on? Is gruesome Governor Gavin Newsom doing a phenomenal job in California Oblast? Seems like the streets are clean. Not a single homeless person or anywhere to be seen. No drug use. Yeah, dude, that's how it works, okay? That's how it fucking works, dog.
None of that crap. It's a truly beautiful city. And that's not an endorsement of Putin. And by the way, it didn't make me love Putin. It made me hate my own leaders. Because I grew up in a country that had cities kind of like that were nice cities, that were safe. And we don't have that anymore. And how did that happen?
Okay, there has never been a moment in the United States history where cities have been safer than they are now. This does not mean that America is devoid of problems, but you are fucking insane for saying that. There has never been a single moment. The safest moment for living in a city is right now. And an even safer moment will be a year from now if things continue the way that they are.